which was a fraud.
Oh, it's obviously illegal too. Let me throw in the mix. They brought the jurors in. Okay, you know what's really fascinating? I wonder how many people, young people, maybe watching this, don't know this. You have a criminal proceeding. The juries, the jurors are coming into the building, and they're going to decide whether or not this man is innocent or guilty. They were brought in with fencing all around from the riots, men holding rifles protecting these people. How can a juror give a fair assessment of the facts when they are facing death and violence if they say this man is not guilty? In fact, the judge even said beyond all this, there is no jurisdiction where Chauvin can get a fair trial in the state, so we're going to do it right here. That's insane.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Future News Network. Today we're going to see what Tim Pool has to say about Derek Chauvin's case. It's gotten out of control. We have new explosive news on what's happening within the case. Crazy stuff. Summer Love, were you there? Do you remember? Did you post a black square? Well, we're going to see what he has to say about it right now.
Derek Chauvin has filed for dismissal of the charges in the killing of George Floyd, citing it as unlawful and fraudulent. He's saying that the court didn't actually have jurisdiction. This was all illegal. And I agree. And I also believe that based on the facts of the case, as we went through it all those years ago, this man should never have gone to prison. I know many people are going to be shocked by that because most people don't know what actually happened. So before we even read this, I'm going to say this. Derek Chauvin arrived after George Floyd was already on the ground. He applied a neck restraint he was trained to do, and this is according to even the prosecution. Derek Chauvin opted for a lesser use of force than he was permitted to use on the force continuum he was trained on. That is to say, based on the actions of George Floyd, according to the prosecution, this is the prosecution's own defense. I'm sorry, the prosecutor's own witness saying this, not defense. They bring a witness up, and he's like, yeah, according to MPD training, Chauvin could have tased George Floyd, which tasers are not non-lethal. They're called impact weapons, meaning they can't.
I think if you tased George Floyd, he probably would have immediately died. His heart was already racing like a mile a minute. Probably would have been a little bit of a quicker death for him, a better death for him in a way. Kind of brutal to think about, but I think that's true.
They can cause death. Chauvin opted for a neck restraint. Now, by all means, you can argue that there were things wrong. Maybe there's some negligence here or something to that effect. But the fact that all of these cops went to jail, even the guy who was just standing there putting his hands up, one of the officers was literally just standing in front of the crowd. They put him in prison.
Yeah, it was the one cop's job to go against the cop who was restraining George Floyd. And he was a rookie, too. He wasn't even a seasoned cop. I think 3 of them were rookies before Chauvin even showed up on the scene. Very, very, well, just, there's blood in the water at that time.
George Floyd is, the whole killing of him, he's been made a saint. I mean that figuratively, and it's insane. Since this, Derek Chauvin has faced federal charges. Now, many people have said Trump should pardon him on the federal charges. The problem is that would send him back to state prison where he'd likely be murdered. Here's a story from Alpha News.
Yeah, I bet if he went to jail or if he went into prison, I mean, any brother in there who gets him, he's another hero. You want to make another hero? The guy who killed Chauvin? Whew.
Chauvin seeks dismissal of charges in bombshell filing alleging unlawful and fraudulent contact. What was done here is shocking. It's inexcusable, Chauvin's attorney told Liz Collin. They're seeking to vacate Chauvin's convictions, arguing they were never lawfully brought in the first place. And they're correct. And if this gets dismissed, which, probably wouldn't, Trump can then pardon him and he'd be a free man. In a new bombshell court.
Trump's not going to pardon him. Trump's not pardoning anybody. He's on the back nine. He wants to play golf. The man is not getting involved in any controversy. He doesn't have to, especially in the wake of the midterms. Good luck. Maybe on the outs he'll pardon a bunch of people, but that seems to be when Trump likes to do it. He likes to do it as soon as he gets into office and he gets out of the office. In those 4 years in between, don't expect that many pardons, guys.
filing, former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin's attorney is seeking dismissal of the charges against his client, alleging unlawful and fraudulent conduct by Governor Tim Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison, and the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. In a new 31-page court petition filed Tuesday morning, attorney Greg Joseph argues that Chauvin's due process rights were violated because a grand jury was never convened to review the charges. Let's see if I think we have an interview
Illegal
here.
charges, a fraudulent trial. The attorney for Derek Chauvin talks about new developments in the case and the bombshell grounds for dismissal against all of the officers involved in the so-called murder of George Floyd. Next.
Let's just...
Of not only state laws, this is a state constitutional violation. This is a federal constitutional violation. And what was done here is shocking. It's inexcusable.
So this all happens in a very short amount of time after May 25th, 2020. So they failed to convene a grand jury in this case, violating your client's right to due process. I think a lot of people are going to wonder, though, how something as big as this went unnoticed for such a long time.
Well,
I don't think it did go unnoticed. I mean, I was there when it was happening and the trial was going on, and I knew all of the faults and all the different holes in their logic going into this. So for the people that were awake and using critical eyes at the time, none of this is really big news.
obviously, I don't have to tell you that the circumstances were strange. There was an assignment of authority by Governor Walz, which itself was unlawful. But that's unusual in any case. So I think there were a lot of things going on. I think it was very easy to lose the forest for the trees because in a very short period of time, there were very fundamental and basic violations of due process. And those aren't necessarily things that defense attorneys normally look for in preparing a case like this. You take for granted that the charges are going to be brought lawfully and that the process will be adhered to. And this didn't happen. It's not something that you'd normally even look for in a case like this because you don't.
You have to, though. These days, you have to get them on every... If the jury messes up or the judicial system, you know, there's people that get out of horrible crimes because of the judicial system doing something wrong, and then the case is inadmissible. Obviously, people are of two minds about what happened in this case, but, you know, that's what happens. I've gone to court, and I've had stuff thrown out before because they just, you know, the government incompetency is abound. They didn't file the paperwork. They didn't send this over here. I went one day, I had court, and they didn't even show up. The judge didn't even show up that day. Everybody's cases were dismissed. Can you believe that? I mean, it is just like a dog and pony show with a cash cow at the center of it. If you owe them money, they'll go after you, but, you know, it's all just tax revenue.
Don't see this conduct by state actors.
So you have to essentially go back to the very beginning of this case, follow it all the way from the beginning. What did you find? What's going through your mind, I guess, when you discover this flaw?
The only thing you have when you're a defense attorney, the only thing you have to build your case around, your defense around, is the criminal charges. So I want to emphasize how fundamental this is. If the charges themselves are illegal, as they were in this case, everything that follows from those charges is also illegal, including the trial, which was a fraud.
Oh, it's obviously illegal too. Let me throw in the mix. They brought the jurors in. Okay, you know what's really fascinating? I wonder how many people, young people, maybe watching this, don't know this. You have a criminal proceeding. The juries, the jurors are coming into the building, and they're going to decide whether or not this man is innocent or guilty. They were brought in with fencing all around from the riots, men holding rifles protecting these people. How can a juror give a fair assessment of the facts when they are facing death and violence?
I mean, you could even argue that there was no way to even do this trial because of that. You know, like, even if that's just the social implications of not seeing this man as guilty were so great at the time. I mean, just look at the people that were inflicted with violence just because they didn't believe the story or question the story. There was a lot of blind leading the blind out there. There still is a lot of that. I mean, I'd like to think it's not as bad as Woke 1, now that we're on Woke 8 or something. But, yeah, I don't even know if they could have done this trial fair.
They say this man is not guilty. In fact, the judge even said beyond all this, there is no jurisdiction where Chauvin can get a fair trial in the state, so we're going to do it right here. That's insane.
What went through my mind when I saw this is I was stunned. Obviously, we filed a petition last November and called out a lot of due process problems with the trial at that time.
They ain't letting this guy out.
The district court didn't see fit to grant a hearing in that, and that's currently at the Court of Appeals. But this is so basic. It's easy to miss how basic this is, and unfortunately, everyone did. Wow. Effectively, what happened is the charges that were filed by the Hennepin County Attorney's Office, which were also unlawful because there was no grand jury convened and probable cause was found by a Hennepin County District Court judge. And that wasn't enough. Those charges weren't severe enough for the people who burned down Minneapolis. So the governor stepped in and assigned responsibility to Attorney General Ellison. Now, there is a statute that gives him authority to do that. But he didn't follow the statute either. So what the statute requires, it may be actually a procedural rule. What the rule requires is that the conveyance of authority be done in writing. So that didn't happen. But the bigger point is that the conveyance of authority from the Hennepin County attorney at the direction of Governor Walz only applies in cases where an indictment by a grand jury is required. Mr. Chauvin was a public officer. He was a licensed peace officer in Minnesota.
Okay, so simply put, in order for Walz to appoint Ellison, there had to be a grand jury indictment. There wasn't. They were supposed to convene a grand jury. They didn't. Problem number one.
They rushed it. They absolutely rushed it. People were, I don't know if you guys remember it at the time, but everybody was like texting their officials. Everybody was going directly to the government and protesting and everybody. It was like an infection. There was no time to do any of this. Like, if they really wanted to get the guy, they should have done it like through the right legal means.
Walz then appointed Ellison, a Democrat, unlawfully with no indictment. Problem number two. This is crazy. Notably, Hennepin County prosecutor withdrew from the case against the officers, and according to the court documents, she, Amy Sweezy, also disagreed with the decision to add additional charges against Chauvin. This was a political hit job. I'm going to tell you the sad reality. It's a reality that Democrats know all too well. And there are these weak conservatives. Guys, I'm not a conservative. I don't like conservatives. I say that. I don't not like liberals either. I just don't like these things they do where they're like,
just don't like liars. I mean, just like use the information, hunt down more information, get a better view. It's that simple.
We must limit the power of the state. And you're like, I agree. Limit the power of the state within the confines of our control, right? No, always. Well, these leftists are killing people, stealing power, wrongfully imprisoning people. Well, that's bad too. Agreed. Will you stop it? No, because we should limit the power of the state. Okay, I'm done with this. All right?
Yeah, it's just like, I don't like this person. I hope they do go to jail. It's not like this is another human being with rights inalienable by God and they deserve all the American privileges that I have. And, like there's something called grace, people. Can we try grace? I mean, on either side of the aisle, give people a little bit more grace.
Post-liberal reality is that liberalism is beautiful and works so long as you got big, beautiful 30-foot walls from sea to shining sea. If your people are moral and just, and they share a moral framework, liberalism is beautiful. But that could work with any ideology. If every single person in the country is Muslim, are they really going to need laws if they're all accurately following their own book?
It's a big question, Tim. I'd say you probably still would need enforcement of those laws because they're brutal and they're not universal. That's the thing. They crossed the sexual boundaries between men and women. Different laws for men, different laws for women. So I think you would always have a state of conflict there, at least eventually, because not everybody's going to be, I guess, well, if they're the ultimate believers and they just abide, That's a big question to ask, though, Tim.
Yeah, for the most part, I mean, obviously they're deviants, right? But what I'm saying is, you can say in Saudi Arabia, we have free speech. Really? Well, yeah, because no one's going to blaspheme the prophet because they believe they should not. And that's the thing about the United States. We have free speech. Sure, it was codified at a time when no one would dare blaspheme against Jesus Christ because everybody believed in Jesus Christ. Blasphemy was a crime, and it was so outside the pale of the moral framework of the people of this country, they did not think they needed to include that. They literally arrested people for blasphemy. I think it's funny, too. The joke is always, if the founding fathers were transported here today, they'd be like, you let women vote. But that's not even the real thing they'd say. They'd say, you let Catholics vote. You couldn't.
Whoa. You watch it, Tim. Us Catholics are the only true church.
You couldn't hold office if you were a Catholic. That's how crazy it was back then. It
was. I mean, I must admit, I am Catholic, but most of the country was built Protestant. I mean, that's kind of the roots of the country. And it has that Protestant feel of, like, screw you. Especially, like, when they were, telling that to the British.
Moral framework. That it's easy to say we believe in liberal ideals and limited power of government. Yeah, when literally everybody fears God. But when you get people who don't, people who believe in just stealing power, you will get things like this. You will get Derek Chauvin, trained by MPD to do everything he did, arriving late to the scene and seeing a guy already on the ground and choosing not to use the maximum amount of force allotted by the MPD and use a lower use of force, which resulted in, unfortunately, a contributing factor, I believe it's fair to say, the death of George Floyd. But if we're talking about accidental death, you don't put a guy in prison.
I don't think it was really asphyxiation, though. I mean, he was on the ground. I think the man was having an extreme panic attack, which was coming from the fentanyl and the fact that he was going to be arrested. Didn't he swallow like a big old bag of fentanyl right before he got there? Dude, like, he was going to die either way, but he was on the ground and he's panicking more. I think that was just a no-win scenario. Was there any way to save George Floyd? Like, the result would have been the same. It was a terrible image as far as the camera angle. Oh my God, brutal. No, I understand why, like, when people first saw that, they're like, oh man, I guess it really still is bad out there. They're hunting them down in the streets, whatnot. But then you look into it a little more, and then you realize, like, the guy was career criminal, stuck the pistol in the pregnant woman's belly. Tons and tons of crime. The guy had a rap sheet this long all the way down. And then you're like, oh, okay, But that didn't matter.
Get him stabbed several times and then put him in federal prison. Although federal prison may have been the protective custody, essentially, right? So the issue is George Floyd tries buying stuff with counterfeit money, chewing on a speedball, meth and opiates, and meth and fentanyl in his car behind the wheel. Crime after crime after crime. Resists arrest, fights with cops, and then his heart starts giving out. Okay. Free Derek Chauvin. I'm going to leave it there.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Do you believe that Tim is right here? What do you think about this? I mean, it's been so long, right? Isn't this like old news? I think we all just kind of expected that Chauvin would be buried underneath the jail or stabbed in prison or it'd be over. But this new development does bring light that maybe this man can get off. He could find a way to be free again. Free for what, though? You get out there, everybody hates you just the same. And you have to deal with that just the same. So maybe there really is no such thing for freedom for Mr. Chauvin. You let me know what you think down in the comments. I will see you in the next installment.